Black Ops 6 Warzone keeps getting closer and closer, and Warzone 3 is becoming an absolute ghost town. I know me, and probably the majority of you watching this are ready for the Black Ops 6 Warzone integration, so I just want to make a video reviewing and kind of taking a look back at this year of Warzone, before it's gone forever. Events, LTMs, maps, and gameplay changes will all be discussed in this video. Although we will be talking about some of the metas, if you want a more detailed look back at this year's metas, I have a video dedicated for that, so check that out after this. But go ahead and let me know what your favorite thing about Warzone 3 was down below. So just before Warzone 3, we had arguably the worst state of Warzone of all time. And to me, Warzone 3's entire purpose was to undo the near permanent damage that we had from Warzone 2. Movement was back, which I would say is probably one of the biggest pillars for Warzone and how successful it'll be. Another change was the gunplay, and I really can't put my finger on it, but the overall feel and recoil control of MW3's is light years ahead of Warzone 2's guns. I do know one thing for sure, and that's the fact that we didn't have near as much visual recoil in the game as we did with Modern Warfare 2. It's still present, but not near as noticeable. All the guns overall just feel smoother. The backpack looting system carried over, which I actually really liked this year until I watched World Series of Warzone, because that's when the game just turns into like a smoke grenade cluster disaster where everyone has at least 4 ready to go. I know the system is going away, but I wish there was some middle ground here to nerf the amount of smoke someone can carry, because I like being able to stow like extra of other things. But other than that, this is probably about it for like the major changes in the overall gameplay. I think we all can agree that these changes are just objectively good. Like, I don't think anyone is going to complain about any of these things, maybe except for the backpack system. But all of this is something people were excited for and kind of all in on. And once launch came, I would say it was received very well. Another thing we were excited for was a brand new big map being Urzikstan. And this map is filled with a lot of fun POIs and areas, but overall I think the pacing of this map at launch single-handedly ruined it for me personally. This is one of, if not my least favorite big maps of all time for this reason alone. Keep in mind that this map launched with a 100 player count, which is seriously one of the worst things about the launch of Warzone 3. It was a very big map with the smallest player count we had ever seen in a big map, so I just don't know what sense that made. Even Al Mazrah from Warzone 2 at least shipped with the 150 player count. This resulted in the slowest battle royale experience we had ever seen in Warzone, and I think was responsible for stagnating Warzone 3. I will say we later did get like a buff to the lobby size going up to 120, which is great and all, but I still just don't see the problem with 150. We had it in Verdansk, we even had it in Caldera and Al Mazrah, so like what's the problem with Urzikstan? The map itself isn't bad, but the experience is, and that is a part of how good a map is to me. I really wish I could disconnect the two from each other, but it's like impossible. I just don't like playing Urzikstan. And again, this is just my opinion, so please, if you disagree with me, go ahead and let me have it in the comments. Tell me why Urzikstan's a good map, because I'll definitely hear you out. For the first week of Warzone 3, before Ashika Island and Vondel were carried over, we had Urzikstan POI rotation for Resurgence, and I'm not gonna lie, this was actually a pretty good time, but was once again held back by a 40 player count. I'm pretty sure these maps are bigger than any of the previous Resurgence maps aside from Vondel, so I don't know what sense it made to have the smallest player count across all of Warzone on one of the larger Resurgence maps. Anyways, the Gulag on Urzikstan got a complete makeover at launch, and I don't really know if I could call it good or bad. It just kind of like exists. But what I do know is that the new exfil or like escape system is the greatest way to win a Gulag without killing your opponent ever. Before we had the jailer or the capture point, but this is a nice mix of the two because it was risky but could pay off. Aside from the exfil, we also had like the mini events in the Gulag, like where you spawned in with the fully kitted out guns and tons of cash everywhere. Just nice little switch ups from the normal experience. Shortly after launch, we also got Ashika and Vondel added to the mix, so that was really nice, but I don't want to go in depth because these are maps that were in the rotation during Warzone 2, and I would argue that these two maps carried the launch of Warzone 3. A few months later, we got another map, this time being Return of Fortune's Keep from Vanguard Warzone, and this might have been one of the greatest updates of the entire year. Fortune's Keep, I know for a lot of people is a forgettable and lackluster map, but I think the Warzone 3 experience on this map was one of the most fun times I've ever had with the game. This is also the first map alongside Ranked Resurgence, which was another massive highlight from this past year of Warzone. Nothing against Battle Royale Ranked, I actually had a really good time in that during Warzone 2, but I think Ranked Resurgence fits that competitive playstyle a little bit better than Battle Royale. Being able to like directly reward like fragging out and stuff, and like the whole entire SR system was just like objectively pretty fair. But let me get one thing straight, I think that Ranked Resurgence should for sure exist alongside Battle Royale Ranked. Like it's not like one or the other, there definitely should just be like 2 different playlists for it, and I think that's what the direction they're going with Black Ops 6. I just prefer Resurgence. While we're talking about that, I will say that's another downside of Warzone 3 was that we never got a Battle Royale Ranked experience at all the entire year. And I know that's coming with Black Ops 6 as well, but still. Fortune's Keep as a map also had a lot of fun quirks that separate it from all the others. Most notable was the fact that you could get wonder weapons to play with, and I don't really see that as a bad thing. I thought it was a lot of fun, and they were pretty easy to get, but not available in rank, so that was like the balance here. Maybe it's a little corny, but this is the chaos I think we're missing from Warzone. And the fun doesn't stop there. This is also a map that has the most Easter eggs and secrets to explore. Aside from the ray gun room, we also have like the vault Easter egg, the Crimson Camo quest, the time trial, and the skull quest for the Wonder Waff. I mean, there's just a lot going on here. We don't have things like this on any other map, so it's nice to see them kind of go all in on fun stuff like this with Fortune's Keep. However, we obviously cannot overlook or ignore the return of Rebirth Island. I know I just said that the return of Fortune's Keep was an amazing update, but the return of Rebirth Island may have been the update that completely revitalized Warzone entirely. We all know that Rebirth is one of, if not the greatest map in Warzone history, so bring it back got a lot of buzz going in the community and definitely brought back some of the original players. The update was a knockout of the park and actually delivered on the much anticipated return, making minor tweaks to the map while staying true to its original and even adding random POI destruction to give us a fresh experience for new and returning players. Another great addition to this map was the introduction of the Resurgence nuke that so many people love to attempt. I say attempt because this thing is like nearly impossible, but still a really fun thing to try for. The biometric scanner was another fun added feature exclusive to Rebirth that adds a little RNG to the mix, which I always say Warzone is missing. My only complaint about Rebirth was that it was pretty much left untouched for the rest of the year. Sure, it was the most popular map, but I wish with each season they added at least like one new POI or made like a couple minor tweaks. The closest thing we got was this random submarine that sometimes spawned in but is also teeny tiny. And that kind of feeds into my next point, like the overall like change of the game over the years is just like really lacking in Warzone 3. This is probably one of, if not the biggest downfall for Warzone 3. We can go ahead and talk about limited time modes, or lack thereof. The first one we had was Sleigh Ride Resurgence, which I thought was one of the really fun modes this year. Honestly, it might have been the best one. It was a Christmas LTM where you had Christmas trees with crazy loot that would open a door to a black site where Santa was waiting with a minigun. Then once the circle starts closing, it will always end on the train, which I think is really creative for a goofy limited time mode like this. Throw in some zombie reindeer and snowballs that are a tactical more powerful than stuns and flashes, and you have one of the better LTMs in recent memory. Later, alongside Fortune's Keep, there were like zombie power-ups that were just kind of like a part of the map, which I'll go ahead and lump here. Weren't even LTM, just kind of there for whatever reason. But these are pretty much like all the zombie power-ups. You had like a bonus points one and an armor one. It was pretty fun. It was only for like a month, and it really didn't like change the game up too much. However, it wouldn't be until the High Trip Resurgence where we got another notable LTM, and this one was again just like sort of fun, but was really not all that different. It kind of just feels like a mode that could always be around just in the back pocket. Basically, there were lootable edibles that gave you powers, and these were nice, but wasn't anything too crazy, hence why I think this mode could have just been like reoccurring because of how simple it was. And really, the only other mode worth talking about was Purgatory and Zombie Royale, which is very recent. We all know what Zombie Royale is, so I'm just gonna save my breath on that one, but Purgatory was actually a decent LTM because it was sort of like this sandbox mode with zombies and a few quests or tasks to do for challenges as well. This was actually a pretty good mode if you just want to like warm up in and just like frag out before you actually get on, and I would definitely take it over Lockdown or Plunder, hence why it's another mode that just feels like it could just be in the game. While we're talking about this, I also want to talk about how disappointing the Haunting update was this year. The Haunting update is something everyone's always excited for. I mean, there's just like so much going on. You know, maps get a remake, you get all these fun LTMs and just like the jump scares. It's all awesome. But Warzone 3 seriously might have been the worst one out of the last 4 years. I mean, Warzone 2's update was actually pretty good and like ended the game on a high note, but this really just left a sour taste in my mouth. I think they were just ready to just like let the game be dead, so this is like the final update and they just threw it together last second. It really felt like there was like no effort put into this. But other than that, there weren't any other LTMs worth talking about despite us having so many in the vault to choose from. I mean, genuinely, what is the problem with bringing back something simple like Armored Royale? That's a mode I think most people enjoyed. It's like one of my all-time favorites, and new players would love that. And I mean, this is something Warzone in general has been lacking in the last 2 years. Like this is like the variety and party modes are just something we don't have. And I know things like the King Kong event and Vanguard Warzone were getting out of hand, but like at least they tried. Seeing no effort putting into this in the last year was very disappointing, and I really hope Black Ops 6 can kind of just like resolve that issue. And this also goes for the events too. I really can't think of one memorable event from this past year. We had some awesome collaborations like the boys making a return and like the WWE operators. Like I love that kind of stuff. But like the only like notable change I can think to like the maps and like how the game was played was the Superstore added being back to the game. And don't get me wrong, that's like an awesome POI to make a return. And we also even got like that mini Resurgence map to play on, which I also thought was pretty fun. But usually we get way more fun map changes and limited time modes, but this year we just got none. So we already established that this gunplay is good and did a lot for Warzone 3. However, I think Warzone 3 had one of the more boring lineup of metas this year. Like I said, I have a video going over this past year's meta in order, so check that out after this video if you want a more in-depth look at that. Ironically enough, I think at launch we had the most diverse lineup. I mean, everyone remembers the snake shots, the interceptor, and Lockwood, but the meta that was here to stay was the Pullymont. And I like the Pullymont a lot, but I think that every single gun in the meta felt exactly like this. Obviously, first and foremost, we had an LMG meta like literally every season it felt like, but they never felt different from each other, and that's my issue here. Pullymont, TAC Eradicator, DG58, and finally the Holger 26 were all pretty much the same exact gun, especially the DG and the Holger. Technically, once we hit Season 5, the LMG meta would dwindle a little bit, but still, 4 of the 6 seasons being dominated by LMGs is lame to me. These metas weren't all horrible. I think the HRM9 was a really big fan favorite for the year, but they even ruined that one by making it meta for like, it felt like 3 months, I swear. It was so long that this was like the #1 SMG, which ends up making it feel stale. But the HRM9 will still go down as one of the best SMG metas of all time. Then the Kar 98 making return was another massive W for the metas and really enhanced the Rebirth experience. But really, outside of those two, there's really not any other iconic metas like we used to have. Definitely comment your favorite meta from this last year. Mine's probably the STG, but I really can't think of any other meta that I was like in love with. But a great feature about Warzone 3 that helped shake up these metas a little bit was the conversion kits. These were actually a lot of fun and occasionally found a way to sneak into the meta. The Jack Cataclysm RPK DMR was breaking the game in a fun way for a period of time. Then more recently we got the Jack Devastators, which are broken right now. You can still use these in Warzone. What I'm trying to say here is conversion kits did a great job of giving us like some obscure options that were really good, while also not oversaturating the amount of guns we had to choose from. Because there's already way too many to choose from, and the fact that next week we're gonna have Modern Warfare 2, Modern Warfare 3, and Black Ops 6 guns to choose from in Warzone is just like way overwhelming. So it's nice that they add these conversion kits instead of whole new guns. Based off of the Season 1 roadmap that just dropped as of me making this video, it looks like conversion kits are coming back, and I cannot wait for that. I will say one other thing about the metas and I guess like overall balancing of this game is the fact that when something is broken, for example like the snake shots, it gets handled very quickly, which is something I feel like we've never had in Warzone. This last year was a really fun year of Warzone, but I do think it could have been better. Were all the mechanics and gameplay overhauls good for this game? Absolutely. And that is priority #1 by like an absolute landslide. However, I do think Warzone 3 could have been more memorable because I think they were just all in on gameplay, but overlooked like making it its own experience in its own game. And I think lacking LTMs and events is like a big part of that. Again, I had an absolute blast with Warzone 3, and I seriously cannot stop looking at the Black Ops 6 Season 1 roadmap with excitement. As stated before, Warzone 3's mission was to undo and repair the damage of Warzone 2, and it did an amazing job at that, and at the end of the day, that's all that really is important here. Hopefully Black Ops 6 can ride this wave and bring Warzone back to its former glory, and I'm honestly pretty excited for it. I wouldn't even go as far to say as I'm like disappointed with Warzone 3. I think they just could have capitalized on all the great decisions in the first 3 seasons, but we were later left with just like a stale and kind of like insignificant last 3 seasons of Warzone. But go ahead and let me know what you think of Warzone 3. Did you have a favorite update or favorite change that they made? Please let me know down below. But if you want to hear every meta from Warzone 3, or if you want to hear every conversion kit from Warzone 3, click on screen now. Join my Discord if you're feeling crazy, and if you liked, leave a like. If you didn't, leave a dislike, and thank you so much for watching.